Okay, welcome everyone to the Washington, D.C. chapter of Friends of Figma. We're bringing you tonight our guest speaker, Chris Courtney.
Hello.
Chris, yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
Yo, hey, I wasn't sure if my audio was on or not.
All right.
Okay, and we're just going to take a second and introduce ourselves. This is me. I'm a UX researcher and designer. I have a, these were config Figma badges that we put together, so thought we'd use it to introduce ourselves. I have a neuropsychology background, so I work more in research, but I heard about UX and I got enthralled with it and got really into it and got into investigating things and making things. So now I'll hand it over to let Rioni introduce himself.
I was trying to be fancy and use the walkie-talkie feature, but all right. So thanks everyone for joining. I'm Rioni. I'm out here in Northern Virginia, Manassas to be specific. I've been a Figma user, I think since beta. It's hard for me to remember now. And I'm mostly a self-taught designer. Started in animation, then quickly shifted to web design. It's my family and my dog, and something I really am passionate about is electric vehicles. And I'm a huge auto layout geek, so I usually try and push the limits on auto layout. So if you ever have questions about that, and I like to contribute to the community, and I got one plugin that seems to be doing well and people enjoy. And you can find, we'll share this presentation at the end, so when people get it later, you can go back and find our links or find them through the Bevy group as well.
And I'm going to introduce Chris right now. Well, this is how you might know him. He is the founder of NewPragmatic.com, which is an educational design education platform that has tons of free curriculum and videos. He's working to make design education accessible. He previously led design programs for Block and Thinkful and began at Northwestern. Before that, he started with digital and print media products for the Tribune company while working with startups in Chicago. Oops. Okay, there we go. And this is how I know him. Chris actually is the person who introduced me to Figma and cemented my passion for design. I had the privilege of enjoying a few sessions with him before he left Block. Today, I still learn from him by joining him to see his live critique sessions and tutorials on his new platform, NewPragmatic.com. And now I'm going to pass it over to Chris, our dynamic and informative speaker.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that introduction. Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Courtney. I'm going to go ahead and take a second to share my screen so we can get this underway. Let's see here. Share screen. Let's make sure we're sharing the Figma screen. And just want to make sure everybody can see that.
Yep, we can.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm going to hide my controls away and minimize Zoom for a second to try to make sure I can get to everything. If you have questions as we're going through this, I want to encourage you to put it into the chat. I'm sure our host will be keeping an eye on that. My eyes are going to be on the presentation itself. Also, I shared a link to this in the chat already. So if you want to go in there, it's not a situation where you can blow anything up. If you want to duplicate it and mess around with the file, feel free. It's read only unless you duplicate it. But there are many examples that I'll actually be showing that are working in the prototype, or actually in the presentation that is prototypes. So we'll get into that deeper.
That's cool. Thank you.
Not a problem. As it was mentioned a moment ago, my name is Chris Courtney. I'm the founder of NewPragmatic.com. I come from a prior life in media. So I've been in media and education, the mixture of the two since 1998, primarily in education since 2014. I used to work in print media, and I'm one of these old heads that kind of made the transition from Quark Express and InDesign and Photoshop to HTML and CSS and JavaScript. But along the way, I've migrated a number of different prototyping platforms. I've built prototypes in Keynote and just about any other a wide variety of prototyping platforms over the past 20 years. Figma is the latest. I doubt, I'd be shocked if it's the last. These things just keep evolving, but it is by far the best that I've seen to this point. After the media, as I've been doing the media and education thing, I've also done this thing where I've been lucky enough to travel and do a lot of workshops with a lot of different organizations, much like the workshop we're doing tonight. Most of these workshops, if I travel, it's like a 2-3 day experience. But every time I would go and touch down in Beijing or Moscow or Shanghai, I would get questions from attendees like, oh, I've got this problem. Is there something that you can show me, or is there something I can read? And the problem I had was when I was at the boot camps, like the Thinkfuls and the Blocks, all my curriculum, because I wrote those design courses, all my curriculum was trapped behind their paywalls. And it meant that if I had a blog post or something that you should read, if you're the person from Istanbul, you couldn't actually get access to that without signing up for the service. So that's what led me to do NewPragmatic. And NewPragmatic is a website. It's also a YouTube channel. It's also a Discord channel. It's also a Figma community resource a community resource site. It's also a CodePen example bucket of things. So I'm constantly making resources and hopefully something in the vast array of things that I've created will be of benefit to you. So I wanted to let you know that there's all the tentacles of ways that you can interact with me and places where you can find the material that I've made. But tonight we are here to talk about elevating your prototypes. And this is a new presentation. I haven't done this one before. It was so nice that the friends of Figma asked and said, hey, can you talk to us about prototyping? Because I really am passionate about prototyping. But what I will say is that Figma has changed a lot over the past, gosh, I started with Figma in 2016, 2017. I can remember when it was just great to be able to go from one frame to the next frame. And that was like a genius. It wasn't competing with Envision, but it was pretty cool. Well, now we have a wide variety of tools available to us. But if you've been in the platform for a while, you might be stuck. You might be stuck where you're at. And you never, you're so busy every day, you never take the time to really look around. You don't have a lot of time to look around. You don't have time to find where these elements are hidden. Or if you're new, the platform that was so easy to pick up and use before we added all of these great features is now becoming kind of difficult to navigate around. Where are the things hidden that I need to be aware of? So a lot of the things that I'm going to show you today are the highlights that I believe will easily upgrade your prototypes and take them to another level without you having to make a lot of heavy duty investments of time to master these skills. These are the things that I see vexing my students almost every day. They come in, they learn the basics of Figma, and they want to stretch, and it's when you want to stretch and step out that you begin to stub your toe. And that's fine. I'm way more responsive to people who stub their toe than people who kind of stay in their box. So let's stub our toes. Let's trip over ourselves, and let's look at a few ways to elevate your prototypes. The first way that I really think that any of you can take your prototypes up a notch is to master scrolling. I can't tell you how many really long pages that I see in non-prototype form that they don't really have the ability to lock anything in a fixed position, or B, scroll as they would in a real environment. Here I'm showing you a couple of iPhone or mobile sizes. Oftentimes what I'll see is I'll see somebody stretch the frame out to infinity. And the idea is that you on the device, you'll scroll, and that's great. But I want to see it as it would really be. And to do that, I really need to know where the top and bottom is, because what I'm really trying to get after is this sort of scroll, not the forever scroll that we often see. To do that, it requires a couple of things. First of all, you have to understand that we operate in frames. So basically I've created a frame around all of this content, and you can kind of see it kind of goes off to the top and off to the bottom. And when you have this, it's very strange to look at first when you're getting used to it. It's like, well, I don't want my prototype to look like that. And that's fine. That's where clip content comes in. But that alone will not allow you to begin scrolling in your prototypes. You have to then come over to prototype. So you're, in the design panel, you're going to clip the content of so the frame is basically more like we see over here to the right. So you're going to clip the content, but you're also then going to have to go into prototype and specifically say, on that frame, I want to enable vertical scrolling. And that's when we get to an experience like this. This may seem like a really simple thing. If this is something you already know how to do, this is going to seem very obvious. But if you're just getting into Figma, this is one of those instances where you have to do two things specifically to a shape to enable that activity. So the first easy way that you can elevate is to get into a habit of using the clip content and vertical overflow behaviors together. The second thing, and I love swiper, which means I love swiping, is I don't see a lot of people really properly using the ability to swipe on their prototypes. I see a lot of before after buttons, but I don't see the actual activity of the swipe. And let's talk about how to do that. So right now, in this particular example, I've got 8 images, 8 icons, if you will. These could be profiles. We've all seen designs like this. Maybe it's Instagram. LinkedIn even has stories. Now, why does LinkedIn have stories? I don't know. But here we have these profiles. And what I really want to do is I want to have these embedded into the design. So this is the same design we had a moment ago. It still scrolls. I want to have that embedded into the design. So really what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this, and I've kind of rearranged the frames. Okay. But I've put this row here into the vertical row that we have for our prototype. Additional note, and this is something I want to point out. You see there's an empty circle down here at the end. That is because I've got that there because Figma wants to sense where the end of the row is. And I can turn the opacity down on this. I just wanted to leave it up right now for our purposes. But wherever the end is, if the frame ends right here, I won't be able to really get this person's profile into what I would consider to be the middle of the view. It would be kind of stuck over here at the edge. So by adding this additional shape at the end of the container, we then have the ability to fully swipe. And you can kind of get a hint of it right here that I do have the ability, but I haven't done, there's 2 things that I haven't done. 1, I haven't really adjusted the frame yet. 2, I haven't adjusted that overflow behavior. And the reason I'm bringing that overflow behavior up again is that's the thing that I see people remembering to clip the content, but it's that second step of setting the overflow behavior that people typically forget because it's not in the view, it's over in prototyping. So now we're going to clip the content, which we have. We're also going to change the overflow behavior to horizontal. All right. And this is frame specific. So I've got this horizontal scrolling now, and you can see, you know, the whole reason why I had that extra circle was so that I didn't have this locked up against the edge. And what you can't see here, because it's the same color, is that extra circle is locked up against the edge. All right. So if I really wanted to do this, I could add a wedge at the end. There's a lot of different ways that we could do this. But I also have the ability to still scroll vertically. Do I have the ability to scroll vertically and swipe? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I can do both at the same time. And a fun fact is you can actually even come up here, you know, this is behind an element. I can actually still scroll back there. So overflow scrolling in both directions is possible. I like to keep it frame specific because I don't necessarily want this suddenly scrolling side to side. And that's how I really believe that. And you know, you can use this on, there's a lot of desktop application for this. It's not just mobile, but I will admit that the mobile size works pretty well for a presentation. So overflow scrolling, remembering to clip the content, it's a really easy way to elevate your prototypes to seeming more like a real instance. Another thing that I want to point out, and I'm going to point out some plugins as we go because I think they're really valuable. I'm using Content Reel here to handle the profile images. The one thing I will say is that Content Reel did not give me the profile images as at those sizes. I did go in and have to crop the frame to make it appear like that. So you do have to do a little bit of work with it, but it will keep you from having to go around looking for images of people for your prototypes. And I think that you know, having Content Reel, this is a Microsoft plugin, so it's always going to be up to date. I really would encourage you to utilize that. And it does more than just images. So if you need names, if you need addresses, things like that, it will auto generate material for you. So the next thing I want to talk about, and this is one that I see by most people quite often, is preserve position. Preserve position, as you can see in the GIF here, is basically the idea of I'm going to scroll the page and I'm going to click on another aspect, and it's going to reset the page as if I wasn't necessary, as if I had not scrolled. And this is something that can take somebody out of the experience right away. And what you have to remember is that when you're going through and setting the interaction, there is this preserve scroll position. And, you know, if you've never done this before, you don't necessarily know what that box is for. And to be completely honest with you, I wish this was something that Figma just, hey, we're going to automatically preserve scroll position and you uncheck it if you want to not have that interaction. My experience has been that, you know, especially if it's within the same view. But preserve scroll position, as you can see from the GIF behind, when they're clicking through to the other pages, now we're not getting that bounce. And that bounce is one of those the telltale things. And this is a GIF, so it's looping. If you're wondering why did it bounce that time, it's looping. Also, GIFs in your presentations or in your prototypes, if there's some sort of interaction and you want it to just auto play, and maybe it's complex, it's something that you can't do just through a simple interaction detail, make a GIF, slap it in there. That's a freebie. I do a lot of usage of GIFs in prototypes. So keep that in the back of your head. Background blur. Now, I don't know how many of you have seen the effects panel that is at the bottom of the design rail, but that effects panel for the longest time seemed to me like, well, gosh, that's like the laziest attempt at Illustrator or Photoshop that I've ever seen. It's like 4 little features. One of them's like a drop shadow. And what the hell is background blur for? Well, background blur is how we get these Apple frosted glass type of presentations without what I would see ourselves formally doing, which is make that in Photoshop, export it, port it in as an image, and there you are. Now you can do that directly in Figma. And the one thing I really like about it, and you've already seen it in action, is when you set background blur on a shape, you can scroll behind it. And as you're scrolling behind it, you'll see that shape applying to things that are going by. So you know that it's live. And again, so much of this is, are our prototypes live? If they are live, we should be utilizing things like background blur. But again, finding a use for it. It's down there. If nobody tells you how to use it, why would you use it? So there's a couple of things that I want to focus on here. One is, it's not just applying background blur, because if you have a shape and you just come through and you apply background blur, if that shape doesn't have an adjustment on the opacity, it won't look like anything's happening. So here I've gone through and created this stupid little doodle where we've got 3 different rows, and you can kind of see here at the top how that background blur is affecting. So the background blur is at 27.18. I didn't set that measurement. This is basically off of a community resource, but the fill is F8, F8, F8 at 92%. So this is really only knocking it back. It's knocking it back 92%. So 8% is shining through, and that's enough to give you that sense that something's going behind it. Now, the question here is, how much is that really impacting, and what happens when I adjust that fill further? Let's take a look at that. So this is 30% with a white strip set to background blur. This is 60%. So the amount of blur itself is not being impacted, only the amount that it's the amount of the layer that it's letting come through is being affected. So the opacity is definitely only affecting what's shining through. And then what the other thing that comes into question here is, what is the color that you have on that fill to begin with? Which means that if you want it, that background blur, and you only want it the blur effect, you could set your opacity to 1, and that background blur would still be effective. So something to keep in mind there if you've never used it before. And this is typically where I do have questions about, if I set the opacity to 1 and I've got a blur and it's a complex image, is that going to introduce an accessibility problem? Possibly. It just depends on the combination that you have. So this is a great time to talk about, the fantastic array. There's 17 plugins for accessibility for color blindness. I would advise taking time to find one that works for you. I have 3 that I use, but the one that I'll point out right away, Stark, is fantastic. If you haven't used it, I would say, 77,000 installs. That seems like a lot. Maybe you should give that a try. And for a lot of people, like I've had students say to me, "Hey, Chris, I can't even find the plugins." It's kind of hidden, to be completely honest with you, if you're new to the platform. So making sure to go into the community, run your search there, but also being aware that how the community is separated. There are files, there are plugins, and then there are creators. So making sure that you're clicked on the right tab is also important. So let's talk about modals, because modals are this magical thing that we didn't always have. So for instance, here, this should look familiar to anybody who's been doing prototyping for a while. We're going from one screen to a facsimile of that screen with a new element on top of it. This is the way that we used to design pretty much any prototype. There was no going off to a particular individual element. But with modals, we have the ability to just adjust that one element on an existing frame. And this is really where I think, scrolling's nice and all, but the number of things that you can do to augment a design utilizing modals, because instead of having to focus on how an entire screen is going to transition, you're able to focus on that one element. And I want to turn our attention to how we make that happen, because so often when you pull these things apart, you'll try to link from the existing frame to the element that you had previously. So like here we have this notification that's popping up on the home screen. Well, you have to first turn that into a frame so that you can actually point to it as a prototype, or as a as a modal element. That's the first piece. The second piece is when you're in your interaction panel and you go into details, you have to come over here from navigate to, and navigate to is how we switch between screens or frames, to open overlay. And open overlay will give you a whole bevy of other options. And this, like everything, I'm pointing at the screen like you folks are standing here with me, but everything here from overlay down is really where the magic is. All right. Unlocking this open overlay, now you have the ability to, you can manually position this, and there are a series of options right here where centered has the toggle. I wish I would have screen grabbed that. There are a bevy of options there. You can set close when clicking outside, which is an important detail, something we often do. You can also add background behind overlay. This is something I can't tell you how many times we used to go through. We'd make a shape, and then we would like draw a shape, and maybe it would be some sort of gradient. Raise your hand if you've experienced that before. But there'd be some sort of gradient that you'd be putting behind the shape to make it separate out and kind of knock that background back. The overlays will do that for you, and you can even set a custom color and opacity on that overlay, which I think is also very important. And this works just like the color panel. So if you wanted that fade from a particular direction, you can. Also, the animation direction. You can also set custom easing on it, which, again, as I said, this is where if you don't do anything tonight from this session, I would suggest going and working with overlays and animations and seeing what you can come up with, seeing what custom bits you can come up with that will really change how your prototype reacts. And this is another thing. I don't think there's anything too small to prototype. If there's a micro interaction that you want to show your development team, or you want to share with your other designers to get some feedback on, this is where that happens. This is the land of the micro interaction, the overlay, the animating of that element. This is the good stuff. All right. And basically, I'm showing a GIF right now, but I want to actually go over here to the one called bounce. I'm just shifting tabs here. Now, if we've got this animation, it's set the bounce. If I click outside of it, it bounces away. The bounce is important here because if we look at what's happening here with the animation, I've put a custom ease on this. And the custom ease is allowing this to really get some wild bounce to it. I could go really crazy if I wanted to. But when you lift out, that is when you begin to get that starting and ending position that moves beyond the target. I'm going to show you that one more time. See how it comes up and then it rests. That's what the custom easing is doing. And if you're really wanting to refine your prototypes, moving beyond just the pre-built and going into custom and making something that works for you is key. The other thing, and I think it's tab. Nope, it's not tab. I forget how to reset that. Yeah, there it is. You got to click on the actual point. So here, if I click on the point, it will reset it. So I sometimes forget how to do that. I forget how to do a lot of things. To be between us, it's just you and me. I forget how to do a lot of things, so I don't recall half of what I do. That's why I make videos. That's why I take notes, and that's why I Google a lot. So raise your hand if you agree with the "I Google a lot" statement. over here on Ditch the Connections, how many of you have had a prototype that looked like this, where there were literally just a billion links everywhere? And then you have this moment where you're like, yeah, I need to change something. I need this particular group somewhere else. So how do you get rid of the links? Well, this is a hack, something you should know how to do though. Highlight what is connected to the rest of those, or to the other pages, and come down here to remove connections. That will get rid of all the connections to that selected group of pages at once. Really speeds up your workflow. It has nothing to do with the styling of your prototype. It has everything to do with keeping you from doing this little weird thing where you're dragging the link off of every single thing for a copied page. Some of you probably know that, others of you do not. And has anybody else done this before? You're in Figma, you're doing a presentation, and then you click on another tab thinking that, oh, I need to go back to Figma. So anyway, probably just me. Also, much like that, I've copied those files over. This is another great plugin that I use a lot. This is reverse layer order. I find myself working in animation specifically. If I'm trying to keep track of, oh, this is going to animate in first, then second, then third, then fourth, I will highlight those, and instead of like manually moving those around, I will use reverse layer order to flip the layer order in Figma so that I can actually animate that with my mind not melting. So reverse layer order, excellent plugin to make use of. Final, no, this is not the final actually, and I hope we're not going too long on the time. But the next bit,
you're good.
What's that?
You're
good? Oh, okay,
yeah, actually,
excellent.
I had a very quick question about that plugin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does it only change the layers themselves in the layers panel, or does it actually affect what's on the canvas too, the frames?
It only affects the layers panel.
Okay.
So
okay.
It's really handy for presentations, like, because in presentations, your last frame will be the top one, and the last slide in your presentation will be the bottom. Well, no, the bottom slide will be the top one. So it'll be a complete reverse order. So using reverse layer order just flips the layer order around in Figma.
Yeah. I've used some other ones that also do things around sorting, but that's nice to have one that just does that. And funny, just recently I was at an event, Figma live streams, and they were talking about how the engineering went into the natural order of when you like duplicate things and when you create layers, it's in the opposite order of how we would naturally work. And they're aware of that. And I think they want to do something about that in the future. So hopefully, but yeah, there's reasons.
Yeah,
why they do
it's
it
one
that
of
way.
It's one of those things where I don't think it's going to, and I would love to see in the chat, like raise your hand if that would be a helpful tweak to the platform. It's one of those things that doesn't keep me from building great prototypes and things with Figma, but it is one of those things where I can get lost in my own head trying to resort out what the real order is. And that's the easiest way I feel that you can benefit yourself there is to get really good about naming your files unique, naming your layers unique things. It helps with, this is something I didn't put in the presentation tonight, but when you have a very complex, big prototype and you want to move from page 17 to page 53 for whatever reason, it's helpful to be able to go in and not try to not try to drag to that page, but to like basically point at the name. And naming really becomes really, really important at that point. So just a side note, but the number 7 way that you can really elevate your prototyping skills, in my opinion, is getting into the community resources and building inside of existing systems. I did not say build a design system. That's something different. I said build with existing parts, components, libraries, use things that other people have built, look at the work that they've put into building those. Look at how the variants are built. Look at how auto layout is working. Look at how they, what their examples are like. You're going to learn a lot just picking things apart. And, you know, this is simply like going in the community resources, searching design system, although I do not necessarily want you building a design system from scratch, or library, and then diving in. Now, there's a few here that I think are of note. One, I really like the Asana design system. It's really simple. It's low level enough. There's not a lot of parts to it, but it gives you a sense of the different shapes that are available to work with. I also like the US Web Design System, WSDS. This is the component library. There's a lot here to work with. And then finally, I have one exercise that I want to tell you about. It's the existing components exercise that I work with my NewPragmatic students. One that's based off Roboto pajamas, and Roboto pajamas is actually the pajamas UI kit from GitLab. The trick with working with a lot of these libraries is that they tend to utilize custom fonts that you don't have. So they'll push the library up and you'll get excited, you'll go to work with it, and then, I don't have that font. Same thing applied to Pajamas UI. I saw that a number of people didn't have that font. So I went through and customized it using Roboto, which anybody can get. I made everything into a Roboto style inside of the Pajamas UI. So this is a remix, but go check that out if you're wanting to make sure that do I have the font? Of course you have Roboto, so you're good to go. But building with other people's components and libraries is going to be a really great way to elevate your prototyping skills. Also of note, that's not the only thing that I have over at figma.com/@NewPragmatic. You can get access to all of the exercises and resources that are available there. So feel free to jump in. Those are all free to you to use. The next thing I want to talk about is staggered animations. And after this, we'll stop it and take some questions. Staggered animations are really where Smart Animate comes into play with your prototype. However, I've gotten this question a lot. How do I get the staggered animation to actually occur? Now, this is a GIF. So what I want to do is I want to come over here. I've got one more where let's reset this one. And you can kind of see it's buttery smooth when it's not in GIF mode. But the green block at the top comes in first, and the rest catch up. This is an ease in, ease out. Just as I said, use custom easing. But what is happening here is that the shapes are beginning at a point that is further and further away, and that's why they're loading in at what appears to be different speeds, even though it's all happening at the same time. So I want to take us back over here to the presentation and look at what's occurring. So this is layering and positioning and timing all interacting together to allow yourself to build a pretty cool animation. This is where we start at. And as you'll notice, there's just a little hint of the first block here that's actually on the frame. If you've been paying attention at all from the rest of the presentation, you know that I like to clip content a lot. So you can bet that at this point, I'm going because all this information is actually on this frame, I'm obviously going to clip that content. But I'm also going to do one other thing that I think is beneficial. We then do Smart Animate over. And the other thing I think is important to point out is if you haven't worked with Smart Animate, the shapes that you have at the end have to be there at the beginning. That's why this animation occurs and these flow in, because from the perspective of Figma, these shapes are already here on the frame, and then they're just moving into place when we actually go to the finished side of it. I also move through and custom fade each block so that they are beginning at different opacities before they come over. This also allows them to this also allows them to have the appearance of arriving from different locations. The other thing to think about here is, how are you using after delay in your designs? There are certain things that you should not have to click on to happen. There are certain things that should happen just automatically after somebody has clicked or tapped or dragged, whatever. After delay is a secret sauce. If you use it smartly, you can keep your testing away from having to do the dreaded double click to make something happen. So utilize after delay, give a short delay on it, navigate to scroll animation. This is going over here. Smart animate. Keep in mind the shapes have to be present in both areas for smart animate to work, and then work with your easing, work with your timing to make sure that you're getting the payoff that from using smart animate to begin with. If you're interested more in animations, know that I've got a couple of videos on my YouTube channel. I've got Looped, which is a live stream of me doing Figma animations, and I also have a Smart Animate workshop. You get to hang out with the cute doggy, and you can kind of see that you can see right here that staggered approach is in form right there. You kind of get a hint of what's coming there. It's just a more expressive version of what I just showed you here tonight. So that's part of the YouTube channel. It's all over there for you. YouTube.com/NewPragmatic. Would love to have you all subscribe if you get value out of the content. You'll also be notified anytime I go live. I do live streaming every day, reviewing student work. So if you're interested in that, know that happens via live stream over on YouTube every single day. And then let's talk about next steps. There's a lot of course material over at newpragmatic.com if you're interested in product design, user experience design, interface design. A lot of what we talk about tonight is part of the interface design course. There's other courses there as well. And then I do mentorship. If you or somebody you know is looking to elevate their game or get into design, know that for $2.99 a month, I'm there available. I meet with students every week. I review work every day. That's what NewPragmatic is all about when you're getting one-on-one feedback from me. So with that, why don't we open up I see 28 over in the chat. So I'm guessing that we've got some questions. So I'm going to stop the screen share. And Rioni, Zosha, how do we want to knock this down?
Yeah, I think there's enough. There's not too many too many people, so that just open mics would be an issue. So if anyone wants to speak up, Zosha, can't remember.
Oh, let me give you all permission.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do that part first. Sorry,
Yeah.
everybody.
Oh, I see one of the
Oh,
students. Hi, Brenna.
Oh yeah, and people can allow it. Yeah, participants are allowed to unmute themselves. So I think we're good if anyone wants to ask. Also, I wanted to touch on something, but I'll let people ask first.
Yeah,
Cool.
are people
Cool.
able to unmute, or did I not?
Yeah, I see the option enabled for people to unmute themselves.
So say hello, ask your questions.
And if you've got a question that isn't related to something I directly covered here, you want to ask, feel free. I'm an open book.
Yeah.
Well, Rioni, what was your question? Maybe we can get started with you, and they'll warm up.
I want to show some things, so it's a little rough, but in case people aren't aware, let me share my screen.
Awesome.
All right, y'all can see my Figma. All right, so something that's recent, I'm trying to remember when Figma launched it, and this is just a random exercise I did at some point. You can scroll within the same frame now. So in the past, some of my designs, we would have these really long forms on a page, but I wanted the prototype to be as realistic as possible because maybe there were multiple steps on the one screen. So you had like a left-hand tree and you can skip around to those steps within that super long form. So before I would need to, duplicate the screen. Let's say this whole set of table rows, just imagine for now, these were all part of the form. I would manually have to move it up on that next screen, etc. With embedded scrolling now, I don't remember what they call it specifically. And lately it's been being a little annoying to me because it just is trying to understand what you're trying to do. But if I want to scroll down here, so let's say I have this card and these are low performers. This was a recruiter's dashboard. And let's say I click this card and I want it to jump down to here. So instead of me duplicating the screen, putting the click on this card, and then moving that, you can simply drag it down and it's going to start snapping to things within the same root frame. The key thing here is, and I might be wrong on some of these things, I haven't used it too much myself, and you can check out the Figma tutorials they've been uploading recently on their YouTube channel. It has to be in the same level of frame or parent. So for this example, while you were talking, I was kind of ungrouping everything. This is really messy, all these tables and stuff. Normally I would have things grouped nicely in auto layout, etc. But for presentation purposes, I made sure all these rows were at the same level in the root. So now you'll get an interaction called scroll to. You can choose your target. So again, you'll see the names of all those components, those table rows I've made. I named one easily so I can identify it really quickly. And then you'll get, it doesn't say smart animate, but you'll get animate, and then you'll get a couple new presets. So you'll get the ease out back. So you get kind of a bounce preset in a few different ways. And then you still get your custom. And then the other nice thing is you can offset. So let's say you have some padding that you want to be built into this scroll, right? You don't want the row touching the very bottom of the screen, or maybe even X, like you have your swipe action for cards in a mobile format and you're swiping left to right. So you can add those yourself right into this prototype. So now if I go in here, I'm clicking, it does that bounce for me and it does it right for you. And then here I put in a, go back to top button, and does the same thing. So with the back to top, that's targeting, again, it has to target something in the same parent. And I just targeted the text, anything that you think would reach to the top if that's what you're trying to do. So that's kind of a newer thing, and it's fun to play around, but yeah, you can certainly get kind of lost and you might need to restructure how your layers are grouped if you're trying to group something. But yeah, I wanted to show that.
That's great. This is what we refer to as anchor tag. It basically it acts like an anchor tag.
Exactly.
One of the things I hate about using scroll to is I wish that they would just call it anchor tag, or use that web language but I know what the action is, and scroll to is exactly what it does. And that is, that is, it's just one more thing that they keep tucking into that interaction detail. And this is why I wanted to take time tonight to kind of talk about the interaction details, the hidden bits that are finding their way, because this is not on the design panel. It's in the prototype panel, and then you have to get an interaction started, and then you have to go in and select the type of interaction. So we're like 3-4 steps down into finding out where that thing is. And I think the more time that you spend, if you're joining tonight and you're just getting started with Figma, or you've been using Figma but you haven't done a lot with animations, the more time that you can spend inside of the interaction detail panel, the stronger you're going to be at prototyping, because it's just all in that one panel, in my opinion.
Yeah, and then you'll see here, let's say I wanted to do another one, right? Because I have multiple elements in this table row because you're trying to make it modular and easy to use, and have a more complex component system. Now, if I just do a drag, you'll see it's trying to select the children within the thing I'm hovering, and you'll see it's even trying to choose things, which I guess they're trying to make convenient outside the clip content area. But if I do this, it still doesn't work because something I just chose is just a text layer in a cell. It's not at that same level of this card. So it's a first iteration, and obviously they're going to make improvements like they always do. But it's
I would
definitely something fun to play with.
Yeah, I would compare Scroll to right now to the early version of auto layout. And the early
Yeah,
version of auto layout was painful, just painful. And now
yeah,
it's really nice.
yeah, it is.
And
Yeah.
that's something, I thought about maybe getting into auto layout, but that's not necessarily prototype and moving and things like that. There was a question here from Alina talking about flip animations, and I guess the question there, Alina, is, are we talking about like a card that flips, or are we talking about something that like that turns in a particular direction? Flip can go in a couple of different ways. I have not, in Riona, you or Zosha, feel free to jump in here. I have not seen the card flip uh, sort of thing. I can anticipate in my head that I would need to reverse the text so that the basically the text was backward, and then layer those two things together, and then somehow make it to where those things could flip over. But I haven't done it myself. So
Yeah. Um, if you're talking about like z-axis type of
yes.
thing in the web, yeah, Figma can't do that. Maybe at some point they will. I mean, something I noticed about Figma, they're really trying to build it from a web development perspective, at least in my mind, which I appreciate. And pointing on that, I'm trying to remember where you touched on, oh, your animations. So you were choosing your, if I go here, your easing. These
Yes.
properties will now be included in the inspect panel. So they've made some really nice updates to the inspect panel, and this is one of them. So you'll actually get the curve values and the duration. So it's really clear for the engineers to see.
I would also I would also add that Figma has a really, I think maybe it might have been Joey or Roji, somebody, one of the two, wrote a handoff to developer checklist document a while back that I felt did a very good job of explaining what that third tab is really for. Because if you're in Figma day to day, it's not really obvious why somebody might use that tab unless you are working with developers. And then the prior version of that tab was kind of underwhelming by comparison to where it is now. So that's one of those situations where as the platform continues to grow, it becomes important to kind of revisit it from time to time, because, oh wow, this has changed since the last time I saw it. And right now, variants really changed how we create our components, and I'm having to go through and rebuild a lot of things relating to components, like new videos and whatnot that are coming out, because of those changes. Those are good changes. I'm not mad about it, but it is one of those situations where if you're not keeping up to date with, this platform's changing a lot faster than, I would say, if you're familiar with Sketch back in the day, or if you used Photoshop or InDesign, any of those other platforms, this platform changes a lot faster than that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the natural. They definitely built it in a smart way. That's the advantage, I guess, of being a web tool. You can deploy things more quickly and affect individual features with a sharper knife without having to affect other things. And actually what I'm using right now is the beta version of Figma. You can find it in the release notes. So I use it for my personal account. But before that, and I think they might do this still, is they have the benefit of being able to enable beta on just a specific feature. So in the past, when I was still active in the community, I'd have maybe someone reach out to me and be like, hey, you interested in trying this beta feature? They would activate it on my account. And then my teammates could still work with me. It was just this one feature that was updated. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, and touching on the flip thing, I wasn't sure if you meant just rotation like this, which you can certainly do with Smart Animate. But yeah, you can't do the actual flip like on a Z-axis the way you can with 3D Transform on the web. Does that help?
Yeah, got it. Thank you so much. Sorry, I have some background noise, so I was
It's okay.
turning on my microphone. But thank you so much for that. Yes.
No problem. And somebody had a question earlier about GIFs. I was doing some recording earlier, and I embedded some GIFs. I'm using recordit.co. You could also go through and just do a screen recording of your laptop and then run it through Giphy or something. I lean on recordit.co for quick GIFs that I just need. But there are other things out there. Recordit.co is easy and free. So I threw that into the chat as well.
I'm gonna write one as well. I'm on Windows right now, but there's one for the Mac called Cap. It's open source, which is really interesting. And it's hosted on GitHub, and you can also get plugins. They're all free, so you can do things like show your keystrokes. So if you're trying to do more of a tutorial like thing and you use hotkeys a lot, which I like to do, you can do that. You can show your camera. Sometimes they're a little buggy because it's open source, but for something that's free, if I'm on my Mac and I want to do a little more than just a basic screen recording, this one is excellent. And it also has lossless compression built in for GIFs. So you can convert your screen recording to GIF, and it does a really good job. And then, yeah, just for straight screen recording, if you don't want to use Recordit or you're looking for something else, just QuickTime. If you're on the Mac, QuickTime straight screen recording is really good, or the screenshot utility. Again, if you're on Windows like myself, if you're on Windows 10, if you're on the latest version, even recent versions, there's a built-in feature called Xbox Game Bar. The default hotkey for it is Windows G, and essentially you get an overlay. Its intent is for gaming. I wish I could show it, but I think if I try and do it and I share my screen, it'll just show up over Zoom. But you have to enable the feature or enable the option that what I'm currently looking at is a game, and then you can choose to record essentially anything. So you can record your whole screen or just the window or set a time limit, and then there's capture settings and stuff. So that's what I use if I'm on Windows, if I want a really smooth experience. But yeah, Cap for Mac is really, really nice too, and it's free.
Okay, so we've got, so I want to make sure that, so Steph, did we answer your question related to the animation details that you can get from the inspect panel? She had a question about devs. And then we also had, I think we answered Molly's question. She was wanting to know about the GIFs, and I think we've covered GIFs well. Oh, Riona, you were talking about UI faces.
Oh yeah, I mentioned that one. Yeah.
Are there any other? You know, I brought up some plugins. I love the Figma plugin.
Me too.
Community. While we're here, which one did you create?
Yeah, I might as well plug it. So I should have it installed. I probably have a developer version installed.
Got it.
Yeah, if you go to community, you can look up my name, but it is called Reset Text Layer Name. So this is the use case. So actually, instead of a cover image, I put a little recorded video here, if you can see. So
Mhm.
you might have, let's say, a bunch of components, and you've purposefully named text layers within that component to give it a certain label. Maybe it's a class name if you want like a really clear handoff for your developer. The issue sometimes is for maybe organization purposes, or you just want to see at a glance what is what in the layers panel with your text layers. The only way to reset the text layer name, so the label in the text layer name reflects what is on the canvas, is to come in here. So see, this says over 80% higher. This is probably because I duplicated this original component, didn't change the layer. The only way to do it is start a rename command or double click. You can do command or control R, and then backspace, delete it, and then it resets, quotes reset. You can only do that one layer at a time, right? That gets really annoying. So what my plugin does, you can select multiple, reset text, and just run it, and then it'll do it for you. You get a nice little confirmation. If it's not a text layer, I'll show you what happens. That's not a text layer, silly. So it has to be a text layer, of course, but that's what it does. So it was an issue I kept running into because at our company, we work with a lot of heavy data, lots of tables, lists, and I'm just trying to keep things organized. And when Figma plugins became a thing, I got an invite to be a beta tester. And I was like, I don't know much about JavaScript, but TypeScript seems a lot more beginner friendly. And I was able to do it. I had a little bit of help with Tom Lowry, but their API documentation is excellent. They even have like starter plugins that you can essentially follow instructions and kind of get a sense of how they're built. And then there's also the Friends of Figma Slack community. There's also a Figma plugins community. They're both under the official company name, and there's a lot of help there, and people are always willing to help out.
Oh yeah, super nice folks over there. And then I want to say Miggy, he just joined from Rhode Island School of Design, so they're just adding more awesome people.
Cool.
Well, I have a question I can ask you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for me or for Rioni?
For everyone, no. Well, actually, I was talking to Rioni about this before, but I was working with a client museum, and so working on their homepage and wanted to draw attention to one part of the page. And so when you scroll down on a website and something animates in, how would you suggest the best way to, like, a text box animates into the web page as you scroll? What do you think would be the best way to attack that prototype?
What I would probably first attempt to do is put an interaction on a particular shape. So as you come down the page, once you hover over that space, it then, after a delay, it triggers an interaction. So it's not like you have to click on anything in particular to have that element come in. But if you basically, and this is where I would use, I talked a bit about modals, and I would use modals. I would use after delay. I would use on hover, and then the hope there is that they're not just scrolling by really fast. And if that's the case, they're probably going to miss it anyway. But if they're scrolling down and kind of inspecting and reading like you would think a normal person would, that would animate in, and then that should address the question. Does that make sense?
Yes, that definitely.
Rioni, would you handle it a different way?
Yeah, I haven't actually been able to experiment with that. It's almost like yeah, you have something triggering on scroll. I don't know. I haven't messed with it enough, I think, to have a confident answer in that. I'm sure, again, this is like, it's not a basic web interaction, but I feel like more and more it's a common thing where you see what's on the screen is affected by scroll, and a lot of like front end frameworks have it. The Vue framework that we use, they call it a scroll directive, and you can choose what exactly is affected at what point and which position of the scroll and things like that. Yeah, maybe it's their next iteration on scroll to, who knows?
Yeah, so we've got a question that's come in about drag effects. And yeah, that is a side note. That is kind of interesting. Could scroll to trigger, like, could I click on scroll to and then on delay, it then triggers something to occur because I'm scrolling to it? Could be.
Yeah.
The weird thing there, not because I oftentimes will get distracted. The weird thing there is because people interact with our products in so many different ways. The trouble there is that if they don't hit the scroll to, does that then keep the animation from firing? And if that does, is that a problem? So like I want to be careful with really brittle, like click this and then this will happen. I
Yeah.
like hover because it's kind of like, well, all you got to do is hover, and you're not even aware that you're hovering over it, so it should occur.
Yeah.
So oh, and you've got the Friends of Toronto. Actually, it's the Friends of Figma, not Friends of Toronto. We're
Yeah.
all Friends of
So
Toronto.
we'll go back. I'll go back to
Toronto,
at
too.
least what I know of dragging. I've done limited, because usually when I think drag, it's mobile interactions. I've done limited mobile interactions. Most of the work I've done is more web and desktop. But really quick, yeah, if you go to friends.figma.com, that's the landing page of the entire Figma community, and you can find any group you want. You just use your same Figma account. I once signed up for one in a different country. So yeah, that's where you go for that.
Went to one in Africa.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah, Figma Africa is really big. I mean, they have a dedicated Twitter account just for that. So could you teach us how to do the drag effect? Were you talking about no Toronto group? Not even Canada. Interesting. That's kind of surprising, actually,
Yeah.
because there's some people I know in Figma that work at Figma that are in Canada. Mariana, did you mean, I'm still sharing, yeah. Are you talking about this, the on drag, and how we would use that? Or is something beyond that? And yet you're welcome to unmute yourself if you want as well. If you're typing something, I can answer for now. The on drag, yeah.
Oh, I'm just prototyping over here, trying to get something together. Feel free to tackle it though. I'll show you what I got in a second.
The on drag, it essentially is, I would think of it almost similar to a click, right? But dragging is something you would have to do usually on mobile, right? Like maybe you're dragging a card in this case, or a tab of some sort that's kind of half off screen, like something you would swipe in. And then it's just another form of triggering what the next frame would be. So again, you'll see you'll get the same properties like smart enemy, you get your easing, and then what do you want to do? You want to navigate, open. So and I think if you are using a mobile device, correct me if I'm wrong here. So in your prototype settings, you can see, by the way, if you didn't know this was available, if you go into the file for the first time, you have nothing selected, you can choose your starting frame from here. And then there's also device frames. So if I choose an iPhone 8, I can even choose the model. So if I play this, it should, yep, show me a mobile device. I don't know how many devices they actually have for mockups, but now you have the preset. You'll see it change. It's changed to a gesture or a touchpad instead of a cursor, a mouse cursor. And then I think if I do this, if I start over, instead of the default interaction being on click, oh, never mind. It's on tap. I take it back. I thought it was going to be on drag. So it becomes on tap. Again, it's the same thing on click, but they're just trying to make it more accurate to mobile. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. It did. Good. Chris, did you still want to show? We have plenty of time, so don't.
Oh yeah, I'll share my screen really fast. I don't necessarily know that I've got an answer that was any better than yours. I was obviously checking out the screen cap there. I'm not even sure if I'm sharing the right screen. Here we go.
I'm going to stop.
So yeah, it's fine. I'm not sure if I'm sharing at this point. But
You
essentially here we are with the home screen. If I'm clicking here and nothing's happening, when I drag, it moves over. I don't necessarily have this set up to drag back. I probably could. It's probably just as simple as moving this back over and changing this to on drag again. So if I drag over, but it's I think that the detail here that I'm getting into could be significantly better if I took a little more time with it. So there's drag over and there's drag back. So that's kind of the, if you think about, like, we oftentimes have these cells of like an email list or whatever, and you'll get this sort of drag interaction where you can move over. Although I know there's a way to control where this is. Like I can stop midway and bring it back if I want to. And I just need a little bit more time to sort out how to do that. Oh, I thought I was sharing. Was I not sharing?
No, you were sharing. You're good.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Okay. Great. I'm not sharing now though, am I?
We see your cap browser tab.
Okay. Oh, pause share. All right. There we go. Stop share. There we are. Hey, I know how to use Zoom.
Yeah.
Look at that.
I don't use it for work. So when I come in, it's like we try and plan ahead of time, but
Yeah,
there's always new
we have
features.
a lot of
and it's
hidden
like,
controls. So
yeah. I mean,
if
if
you
there's
want to
nothing
take
else,
a moment, I've seen other groups do this. We don't have any pictures in our Figma group. If anybody felt comfortable showing their faces, we could do a screenshot for fun.
oh yeah, it's up to people if you want to take a group shot.
Hi, thank you for joining.
Joanna. Brenna. Hey, I know you. Jeremy, Vanetta, Mariano. Excellent.
Okay. All right, I'll go. Oh, okay. Some more people.
Tyler.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, Tyler. We'll give you all 30 seconds. Don't feel pressured to.
Yeah.
Hey, Jimmy.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for joining, everyone.
Yeah.
Aya. Hello. And if any of you have questions for me, I'm available, chris@newpragmatic.com. I'm there. I'm also Design Hog on Twitter. If that's easier for you to reach out, and let me know. I'm always happy to assist. Brenna can tell you all about. Brenna's got the best French pug in the world. His name is Gus, and he's amazing. Also, by the way, do we have any fur babies here? Are there any furry critters that we should be looking at? Because we should be. I really think it's great to see people's faces, but I'd much rather see the pets.
Mine's kicked out of the room. I could probably get them, but
what do we got here? Aya,
there we go.
Oh, Jeremy's calling somebody over here. Gus, pug. Oh, Joanna, now we've got a cat. Now we got a cat over there.
There we go.
Excellent. Now it's funny. It's funny how many people are like, oh, wait, let me go get the cat.
Yeah.
Gotta get
go
another
get the
screenshot
cat. That's awesome. And hello, Jimmy. Jeremy, what is that a pit? Is that what that is?
Oh yeah, it looks like one.
Mute it, but cute dog. How about that? And Vanetta, so many awesome furry critters. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing. That's
Yeah, thanks for
fantastic.
sharing. Okay, we'll do it. We'll go for it.
All right.
3, 2, 1.
All right.
Thank you guys for sharing your faces and your
I
fur
got-
pals.
I got a couple one, yeah, with the pets.
Excellent.
All right.
Well,
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Any other questions before we wrap up? All right. Well, thank you so much for having me, Zosha and Rioni. Big round of applause for our hosts. Thank you so much for putting this together. I know it's always you have a day job and then you come and try to do community things. So that's really cool. And if I'm going to turn it over to Zosha and Rioni. Thanks so much for joining us.
Sure.
Well, thanks so much for speaking. And yeah, he's been informed that he's our first guest speaker for our chapter. So you'll be forever remembered. You'll be the first one.
Yeah.
Well, it's all up from here.
Yeah. Hopefully we can keep it up, but at the same level, but I don't know. But this is just our contact information. We'd love to keep in contact with you, and we'll be setting up some more events. And thank you guys for joining us.
Yeah. And quick note, we glanced over, but I think the prototype.
Yeah.
Don't forget,
Oh.
and Bevy always asks you
Yeah.
when you join, but make sure you all review the code of conduct. Basically, just be nice people and
Yeah, I think we're pretty nice today.
Be
so,
nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw Joanna over there was thinking about it, but
yeah. So we got Twitter, we got our Bevy group. Keep in mind
And
the
this will
Slack
be on YouTube.
workspace. If you do join the official Friends of Figma Slack, there's almost 10,000 people there, and they're only using the free account because to support and upgrade that workspace would be like 30 grand a year. So the message retention is very low. So if you do leave a message in one of these channels or you send us a direct message, it might be gone in a matter of days. So I wouldn't say that's the most reliable. If you want to get in contact with us, I would use the email, and then you're welcome to use Twitter. But the email Zosha and I both get. So
And if you joined us, we'll be reaching out to you. So.
yeah, keep an eye out for a couple of good things. This will go on YouTube, so you can watch it later. We'll see if, with hopefully Chris's permission, we can publish the presentation file and we can put it under each other's names and what have you.
I can't allow that. No,
I saw you had a community space, so maybe we put it there already. But
nah, it's fine.
Yeah.
cool.
Well, thank
Do
you
what
so
you need to
much,
do.
Chris. I've
Thank you.
enjoyed your
Thank you.
whenever you speak. So
All right.
Have a good
Oh,
night,
bye.
everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
bye.